Okay, so you go ahead and do number 4, and I'll put them up more with them. All right, A value is 1, B value is 1, C value, negative pi over 4, D value is 0. Okay, so it looks like minus pi over 4, but we all know that's really plus pi over 4. Your whole graph, this is a phase shift. Your entire graph is just going to shift to the right pi over 4. So if you look, your original dot on sine is at 0, 0. We have to shift that now. We're going to shift it right, so it's no longer going to be at 0, 0, but it's going to be at pi over 4, 0. Your next point was at pi over 2. Now it's not going to be a pi over 2 anymore. We're shifting it over a fourth, so it's at 3 pi over 4, which would be right here. So everything just gets shifted over. Same thing for cosine, which normally starts at 0, 1, but now it's going to start at pi over 4, 1. This one's shifting the other way, because the plus pi over 4 is shifting back. Okay. So next we have 2 horizontal shifts happening. So our A value hasn't changed, so it's still 1. Our B value is 2, which looks like multiply, but that means we're actually going to divide. Our C value is minus pi over 4. Okay, so normally our sine wave would start at 0, 0. We have to multiply and shift. Everything happens backwards with x. So even though there's parentheses, that looks like you, because of the way this is written, it looks like you should do this first, the shift, and then the multiply, but because everything's backwards with x, we do the multiply, which is actually division, and then the shift. So 0, 0, you first multiply by a half, divide by 2, because that looks like multiply by 2. That's still going to be 0. And then we shift it right pi over 4. So your first point would be right here. Okay, and then your second point, which was pi over 2, your second critical point was just pi over 2, you first divide by 2, which is the same as multiply by half, which gives you pi over 4, and then you add a fourth to that, so you're now at half pi. Quarter and another quarter gives you a half, so your next point would be right here. So we'll just for the sake of making sure we understand what we're doing, remember we've got a horizontal compression 2, which means you're actually dividing by 2, and then a shift. So my next critical point would be pi. I divide that by 2 and get half pi, and then I add a quarter to that. So 50 cents plus another quarter, that's 3/4. So you get 3/4 pi 0, which is right here. And now you can probably see the pattern, so you don't need to do it anymore. Is everybody okay? Does that make sense? For cosine, your first critical point is 1, 0. I like it, 0, 1. So the first thing you do is multiply by a half. That doesn't change anything about the 0. Then you add a fourth. So instead of being at 0, 1, you're going to be at pi over 4, 1. Your next critical point was pi over 2, 0. So you multiply by a half. That would put you at pi over 4. But then you have to shift by a fourth. So you'd be at half pi. And your next critical point would be pi. Multiply that by a half. So it'd be pi over 2. Add a half, that'd be 3/4 pi. Once you have the pattern established, you can just go. Everybody all right? It can get a little confusing sometimes, but. All right, so now we got one that's got every kind of change. It's got both a vertical and a horizontal stretch/compression. It's got a vertical translation and a horizontal translation. So your A value, remember that's your amplitude. Your A value is 2. Your B value is 2. Your C value is minus pi over 4. And your D value is minus 1. Once I know my D value, I can put my central axis. That might help me with my graphing. This is also, this pi over 4, that's your phase shift. When we took our notes just a minute ago, that is the beginning. That's where the period begins. Remember, for sine, that's on the midline. So I know that it used to be at 0, 0. Now it's going to be shifted over. So I could put my first dot. I know it's going to be at pi over 4 because that's my phase shift. So it would be right here. And then I know I'm going to go up from there. I also know I'm going to go up how many? Because what's my amplitude? 2. I know that from there I am going to go up 2. Only thing I have to figure out is what about my horizontal compression? Before I go up, how far over am I going? So I can go back and look at my second critical point for sine, which was pi over 2. I have that 2, my B value of 2, which means I have to divide by 2 or multiply by a half, which puts me at pi over 4. And then I know that I have that shift by another fourth. So I should be at half pi. So when I go up 2 for my line, I'm going to be at half pi, so that would put me right here. So now that I know what my compression has done, every critical point is a fourth apart, one line apart. So I know where my next one's going to go. It's going to go from here back to here, and then down, from the central line down 2. Everybody okay? Make sense? We can do the same thing for cosine. I drew in my central axis, and I know that cosine always starts one amplitude above the central axis. That's the bell. We'll do that on tomorrow, and then I'll give you